Saturday morning, the Experts program kicks off, and that means our tech expert, Luis Alvarez, joins us once again from the Alvarez Technology Group. Online, alvareztg.com, at alvareztg is their Twitter handle. Luis, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Mark. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So we have a interesting story to talk about today, very topical as well. And as we are recording this program on Friday the 29th, we do not yet know if a government shutdown is actually happening or if Democrats and Republicans are going to come to a budget deal and stop that from happening at the end of the fiscal year. With the federal government's fiscal year runs from October 1 to September 30th every year. Of course, you and I, most businesses live on a calendar year, Jan 1 to December 31st, and then our state of California's fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th every year. So anyway, how would because some people have been talking about this, and this is our topic for the day, how would a government shutdown stress our nation's cybersecurity supply chain?
You know, that is a really good question. The last major the last shutdown actually was 5 years ago in 2018. And what a difference 5 years makes in the cybersecurity landscape. Back then, there wasn't the infrastructure or the spending by the federal government in protecting our supply chain from bad actors. But now that's a primary focus, especially through government agencies like the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, which is a major department of Homeland Defense. And they look to be furloughing up to 80% of their staff should there be a government shutdown. And they're not alone. When you think about the number of contractors that all branches of the federal government use for additional services, all of those contractors will also be stopped because they can't get paid. And by law, if they can't get paid, they can't do work. And I know here locally, there's a lot of contractors that work for the DoD and other federal agencies in support of cybersecurity initiatives. So there's a huge fear that once this shutdown goes into effect next week, that will entice and embolden threat actors to launch a lot of campaigns, not just against government infrastructure, but against everything, because the government plays a huge role in protecting every business, including ours. They're out there looking for these activities and warning businesses and industry that things are taking place so that we can take appropriate measures. And without that workforce there to be doing that, it's a scary prospect for the cybersecurity world.
So are the government cybersecurity, quote unquote, police, or the people that work in this area, are they the ones that are the first responders to cybersecurity threats, or how does the whole system work? What's the ecology of it?
That's a great question. So what happens is CISA functions like this big oversight entity over the entire supply chain infrastructure of the United States. And so when something happens, let's say there is a cyber attack that's detected in one area of the country, and maybe it's something that's being launched against, let's say, the power grid in New York, then they launch into action and they get resources so that they can dedicate teams of people to look into that to see, is this an isolated incident? Is this an indication of a bigger campaign? Is this going to impact other areas of the country? And they warn other power grids throughout the country, hey, this is happening. Here's what the elements of the attack, what we're seeing. Look for these kind of indicators. If you see them, let us know. And then they develop a way to thwart those attacks, working with private industry as well as other government agencies. But that takes a lot of people to do that. And when you don't have those people, you may see the indicators happen, but you just won't be able to do anything about it, because unlike other agencies, for example, the Department of Defense, those guys are considered critical personnel. They're not furloughed. TSA workers, air traffic controllers, they're all considered essential workers and they're not furloughed. But cybersecurity folks that work for CISA and other agencies throughout the government, they're not considered essential. So they will be furloughed and they will be unavailable in case an attack happens.
And these types of furloughs stretch across all aspects of the federal government, with the exception, as you mentioned, of our military. So we'll find out something, either today or tomorrow, if we're going to go into some kind of a shutdown where people in services are going to be furloughed. So you'll have to stay tuned for that. Coming up in the month of October, we're going to be focusing a lot on cybersecurity, because that's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we get to do that every year. And I'm just wondering if you want to give us a look ahead at some of the things that we might be talking about through the month of October.
Sure. We're going to be talking talking about what the latest threats are, what can we see down the road, what we're expecting in terms of development of countermeasures against those threats, and how we can protect ourselves as consumers and as business owners from those threats, talking about the different aspects of cybersecurity and what's the most important things you can be doing to protect yourself.
Looking forward to that as we move into the month of October. From a hardware standpoint, one of the things, and I know that as technology moves forward, more and more things are done with soft keys that we have on the computer or buttons on our keyboard. But back when they were making laptops that had an actual on-off switch for your Wi-Fi, I would always
remember those days?
Yeah, I remember those days. But as a cybersecurity thing, I always found it, I don't know, maybe reassuring, maybe I was being naive, but when I would leave my computer either for the day or the evening, I would always throw that switch off, which would essentially remove my laptop, my computer from being on the internet. It was just sitting there by itself, being dumb and doing nothing, not listening to anything. And you can still do that. If you hunt around your keyboard, you'll see there's an icon that shows like an antenna. A lot of times it's combined with the print screen button, but you have to learn how to. The vast majority of people don't take the time to learn what all of those buttons, F1, F2, F3, all that kind of stuff does on their computer. They just want to be able to use it, do their stuff. And I really think that when they took that on-off switch off, it wasn't a good thing because it removed for a lot of people a really easy, dumb way of being able to take their computer off the internet.
There's a lot to be said for those easy hardware-related protections that have gone away because, like you pointed out, even for many people, when you turn off your laptop, you're not really turning it off. A lot of those buttons are programmed to basically go into sleep mode. People think they're shutting their computers down, but what they're really doing is just they're putting it to sleep. And so the computer's still there running in the background. You think, hey, I've turned off my computer. And the manufacturers have done that sort of things to make it more convenient for us. But there's also the danger of giving somebody a false sense of security that they've turned something off when they really haven't. And the same thing with that Wi-Fi switch that you used to have, that hardware switch on your laptop that lets you turn it off and on. I used to use it all the time when I traveled because I didn't want to connect to, if I flipped open my laptop at an airport or a cafe someplace while I was traveling, I didn't want it to automatically connect to a Wi-Fi network without my knowing it. So yeah, there's something to be said for that.
Right. And of course, the other thing is that if you're using an Ethernet connection, the easy thing is to always just take the cable out of the out of the side of the computer. And if it's a laptop and you're taking it home with you, that's what you're going to do. But typically, most people in their homes do not have an Ethernet connection. They're just on Wi-Fi because they're using their computer wherever they happen to be. And wiring, especially in a lot of older homes like what we have in this area, they haven't been wired for internet. So you're not going to have an Ethernet port, say, where you happen to be working. Now, they're doing that, and they've been doing that in new homes for at least 10 years, which is really a handy thing. But for example, where I work, where my workstation is, I would much rather be connected to the Ethernet connection rather than be on Wi-Fi because Ethernet is more reliable and the speed is going to be at the highest that you can get. But it's not practical for me to do that at this point, to be able to run that cable all that way, drill holes through walls and everything like that. So most people are left with having to use Wi-Fi, and that's where your big vulnerabilities are, is through your Wi-Fi connections.
Yep, especially if you don't have them set up correctly or set up all the ability to protect your network from being compromised. And most people don't take the time to do that.
Yep, and everybody needs network security, not just businesses, but individuals as well. So as we wrap things up here on this Saturday morning, tell you that it's alvareztg.com on the web. @AlvarezTG is their Twitter handle. And for network security for your home or business, contact Luis Alvarez's the I-Team because they can come out and analyze your network at home or your business and tell you what you need to do to make it more secure. And Luis, how do folks get in touch with that I-Team?
Yeah, give us a call at 866-78-I-Team. That's 866-784-8326.